TwoCowsGaming fans, tonight we are going to dig into everything about your champions, how to feed them, what types of champions there are, and of course, the different ranks. So let's get into it. All right, folks, welcome to the next episode of John Cow Plays Raid. Tonight is everything about champions, and I am logged into the big account so you can actually see my champs and how I've got some of them built. And we're going to do a little bit of a overall kind of explanation of how champs work in this game. So we're going to jump right into, not that. So we're going to jump right into the, not that. So every raid account has a cool little thing called the index. And in this index, it provides all of the different factions and, of course, all the different champions. So we're going to just start with my favorite faction, which is the Barbarians. And we're going to talk about the different levels or different types of champions. So at the lowest level, you have the common category. Common champions are really meant to be kind of food champions. They're not really meant to do anything other than help you rank up your other champions. God damn it. So common champions are really meant to be food champions. They're not really meant to do anything other than help you rank up your other champions and make your other champions more powerful. They're really kind of bottom of the barrel. You get them from mystery shards, and they are the most common of the champions you get. Every different faction has their own common champions, but they all serve essentially the same purpose. Moving up the ladder, the food tree, as it were, is your uncommon champions. These are a little bit better. In the early game, they can kind of help augment your rare champion that you choose in the beginning, either Kale, Elaine, or Gaelic, or Aethel. But you'll soon be replacing them with better champions, rare champions, etc. The next tier, and probably the tier you're most likely to spend a lot of time with early game, is the rare champions. Again, every faction has their own group of rare champions, but they're good transitional champions to help you get from early game to mid game. A couple of my favorites from the Barbarians are the War Maiden. She has a poison, she has an increased attack, and she has a decreased defense. One of the other rares that I kind of dig from this faction is going to be the Dune Strider. She's an attack champion. She has a couple of nice abilities. Decreased defense. She attacks 3 times at random. Now, this could be useful when you're going against champions that take multiple hits to get through a shield. So, like, think Fire Knight. Which is one of the dungeons you have to complete to advance your account. And then, of course, she has heal reduction. Heal reduction is huge because with the heal reduction, other champs and the bosses can't heal from their abilities when they're used. So those are just a couple of the rare champions from Barbarians that I kind of like. Moving up the food chain more, you get into the epic champions. Now, this is where you actually kind of start to see your account develop. You start to get some champions that are actually worthwhile, that can really carry you into the later stages of the game and get you over a couple of humps. A couple of the very important ones are Haikatun. She is a support champion, but she's also a speed manipulator. She can cause decreased speed on your opponent's champs or bosses. She has increased speed for your champs. She has an A3 that attacks all enemies and has a chance of decreasing their turn meter by 15%. And then she also has a speed aura of 19%. Now, the way the auras work, remember I spoke about this in video number 1, they are 19% of the base speed. So if you're looking at Haikatoon's base speed, it's 104, so we're just going to round the 19% up to 20 for this purpose. So she would get an extra 20 speed from her aura, but that affects all of your allies. So if you have some nukers, which we'll dig into kind of towards the end of the video as far as utility, that could really come in handy in Arena. Another one of my favorites in this faction at Epic is Farrakhan the Fat. He is an attack champion, and his art took a minute to load there. He's a great all-around champion. He has a nice big first hit, an A1 that causes decreased defense. That actually, when you book it out, can be increased to 70%. But here's one of his very useful abilities. His A2, it can cause HP burn and poison. So you want to make sure you increase your accuracy with him. Now, he doesn't start out with an accuracy at all, but he has a 75% base with this ability. So you kind of want to keep an eye on that. And then his A3 is called Beatdown. This is an ally attack ability. And all of his allies, except for him, attack the targeted opponent. This is a great way to really whittle down the health and the shields of your opponent, either in Arena or as you're fighting bosses later in the game. And then last but not least, he also can deflect 20% of all damage coming at this champion onto his allies. So it splits it up between his other allies equally, but it's a nice passive ability. So those are a couple of the more prominent epics that I like in the Barbarians faction. Continuing on up the chain, you get into the legendaries, and this is where my favorite champs are. My number one favorite barbarian is, of course, Thor, the god of thunder. He was part of the Fae event. My Thor is built to be a nuker. He has some great abilities. He attacks one enemy 2 times with his A1, and he has a chance to repeat the attack. Each hit with this attack increases or decreases the target's turn meter by 10%. He does have a ricochet with his hammer, which allows him to ignore block damage on unkillable debuffs. And then lastly, his A3 is Hammer of Heaven. It attacks all enemies. It places a 50% increase attack buff and a 30% increased damage buff on him for 2 turns. And it has a 75% chance of permanently decreasing the resistance of each enemy by 10%, and it'll stack up to 50%. And he also has a 75% chance of placing a 30% decreased speed debuff on all enemies for 2 turns. His passive is Sky Rupture, so every time he deals damage, he increases the thunder counter on himself, and he increases it by 3%. Once it reaches 10, he attacks all enemies and places a stun debuff for 1 turn on all enemies. So he's my favorite of the Barbarian legendaries, and of course Freya and Loki kind of fit in there as well. I was not able to get my hands on Odin, but Legos or legendaries are probably where you're going to get the most value for your champs. The more legendaries you have, the more abilities they have, the more likelihood that you're going to come out of a battle in the arena, the tag team arena, or the dungeons with a win. And then, of course, lastly, our mythical champs. I only have 2 mythical champs on this account. We'll dig into those a little bit later. But the cool thing about mythical champions is that they have 2 forms. They have their base form, and then they have their alternate form. And both forms are very different. In this case, with one form, he is a defensive champion. In the other form, he's a hit point champion. And you can build him for whichever route you prefer. And then later on, as we dig into Arena and the dungeon settings for your teams, we'll talk about how to set up his AI programming so that he can attack. I apologize. You may hear me coughing on and on through this video. I'm getting over bronchitis, and it is a long process. So just bear with me. I apologize, but this is the hand that I've been dealt. So those are kind of the core champion categories. You know, from top to bottom: mythicals, legendaries, epics, rares, uncommons, and commons. Now, you may have heard me speak before on how to feed your champions. When I'm talking about feeding, one of the basic tenets of this game is to use different champions as food to rank up your existing champions. So we'll go down here and see if I've got anybody ready to be ranked up. I do not right at the moment. So we're going to spend a little bit of my resources. I've got plenty for now. And we're going to level this guy up to level 30. So we're going to go up here, grab some force potions, and we're going to level him up to level 30. Now, what does that mean? Basically, he's reached his maximum level at this level. That's what the stars are. Each star is worth 10, so 10, 20, 30. Now, we're going to upgrade his rank. So how do you do that? You click on the Upgrade Rank tab, and you select 3 champions of the same rank, and you hit Upgrade. Yes, I want to sacrifice him because I'm not going to use him for anything but food. And now you have a 4-star champion at level 1. And then you repeat the process. Now let's see if I've got a level 4 champ that I can use to feed. I do. I just leveled up a couple last night. Now this is not... Oh, you know what? We'll do Aishma. She was from our last video. You'll probably remember as the attack champion that I was leveling up. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to rank her up as well. Now, I have these turkeys or chickens or whatever you want to call them. I have 2 4-star, and then I have 2 4-star champions. And that will allow me to rank her up to 5 stars. Why is that important? Because if you look, her level goes to level 1, 5-star. She has a base of 5,865 hit points. Her attack is 514, and her defense is 405. So, now we'll go down here, and we'll look at her gear. I don't think I really have her geared right now. So, hopefully, we can make this work. So we'll go in here. I have no accessories available. What do I have for boots? I have some attack boots. And for this video, I think we'll just throw these on her for right now. I'm not going to keep them on her. This is just an example. But as you can see down here, every time I add her artifacts, so we will go over here and see what we got for attack. Nothing there. We'll increase the crit rate with that one. And then we'll scroll down. I have some crit rate items here that I can use. Do I have any that have crit damage as well as crit rate? Not really. So we're going to use this one, and then we will use these. And down here on the right, you should be able to see her stats go up every time I equip an artifact. So we've got 2 spaces left. Let's find some gloves that'll work for her. I like to try and find gloves that have crit rate as their main stat. I don't think I have that many available. Oh, I do. So I've got some fatal gloves. We'll use those. And then I don't know if I have a fatal shield, so we might have to forge one. Make sure you clear out your stats here because it can really mess with your search. Do I have any fatal shields? I don't believe I do. So let's go see if we can make one. I have no resources, so I can't. So then what we'll do is we'll go in here and we'll go back to her, but we're going to actually search for her. Aishma, or Aishma. There she is. We'll hide this. And we'll see if we've got any that are equipped. Go up here, go to equipped. Do I have any fatal shields equipped? Doesn't look full. Doesn't look like it. So I'm going to miss out on a little bit of a bonus unless let's change it. Let's go in here and see what other gloves I have for people that have equipped. We'll go to primary stats, crit rate. Do I have any two-piece gloves that I can use that would work? Now, I have a whole bunch of champions that I don't really use. I just kind of have gear parked on them for now. So we're looking for a two-piece set that also has crit rate as its primary stat. I think we'll go with her just because, yeah, well, that's awfully spendy, I think. Well, no, we'll go with that one. And then we got to find a shield. So we're going to clear this. And we're going to look for a shield with the substat of crit damage. And we got to match that gear that I just put on her because we need her to get the bonus of having that. So, sorry. Going back out here, she gets a benefit of 3 gear sets. She gets a bonus to her attack of 15%. She gets a critical rate of bonus of 12%, and then she gets defense of 10% minus 15% damage taken from enemy area effect attacks. Very important when you're playing in the arena or in dungeons. Now we got to level this stuff up. We're just going to go to level 8 for now because that's all I have the silver for. Even though this is my big account, it is silver poor right now because I just made a push for a couple other things that I wanted to earn in game. But that's okay. She's level 1. Oh, she's already got that upgraded. We need to upgrade these. So, what's her points? Okay, her crit rate is 100%. Her crit damage is at 130%, but it's not actually 130%. We're going to go in here to total stats. Now, do I get any bonuses? I do. I get some bonuses from Classic Arena. I get some bonuses from Affinity. So, her actual bonuses are speed base of 120. Not great, but she's just starting out. That's going to change as she levels up. Hit points, 12 grand. Attack, 1,000. Defense, 900. Crit rate, 100%. Crit damage, 130%. Resistance, 55. Accuracy, 40. And ignore defense, 0%. Now, all of these are going to go up as she levels up, but you get the picture. That's why gearing is so important for these champs, because you want to get the most out of them. So, she gets to increase her shot at landing poison. She gets to attack all allies to put a weekend on there. And then, she can attack one enemy and decrease the duration of all buffs on the target by 1 turn, which is huge. She also has a 75% chance of increasing the duration of all debuffs on the target by 1 turn. And that can all be increased by spending books. We're not going to spend any books on her right now. We are going to collect our time rewards. So, what's the best way to feed your champs and level them up? Go into battle. Now, I go to campaign just because I have it set up so I can solo things pretty easily with Thor. We'll close out of these and we'll add Aishma as one of the champs that I want to level up. I just got to find her. Where is she? Oh, she's level 50. There we go. So we'll throw her in there, and then we'll go down here. We'll throw in these two. Doesn't really matter. And then we would go here, and we would decide how many multi-battles we're going to do. Right now, we're just going to do 10. I'm not going to sit through them all or make you sit through them all. We'll wait until the end. But I want to show you something real quick. So I'll be back after this multi-battle. Okay, so we're back. Now, the important thing that you need to decide for your account is how you want to farm and how you want to get your food champs lined up. You can do campaign, and to do that, I would recommend going to the highest difficulty that you've completed. So, for example, I'm doing it on Nightmare right now because my Thor can solo most of the content on Nightmare. And that way I get a much better return on my investment in silver and XP for my champs. You don't have to go that route. Maybe you don't have the campaign completed, but you do have the ability to maybe go in here to dungeons and farm in dungeons. Like, for example, Dragon. Dragon is probably the most accessible, easiest dungeon in the game. So you might want to start farming there. And you're going to get artifacts that are a little bit higher quality than what you're going to get from campaign. So it just depends on how you want to feed or how you want to level up your food champs. The nice thing about going into dungeons is that you can actually have 4 food champs if you have a champ that can solo the dungeon by themselves. So that's something to consider as you're ranking up your champions and getting them ready for the mid to late game aspects of Raid Shadow Legends. Now, you may recall when I was looking at Aishma that she had some miscellaneous bonuses. Well, a lot of those bonuses come from the faction guardians. So we're just going to go in here to Bannerlords for an example. And if you have duplicate champs like this, you can go in there and it's going to give you... Let me get my ugly mug out of the way. It's going to give you bonuses that are for the entire game. So right now, at the rare level, I have 3 pairs of champions set up in the faction, the faction guardians section. So I get 10% hit points, 10% attack, and 7% accuracy and plus 7 accuracy, plus 7 resistance for my Bannerlords that are rare. Moving up the chain, I would also get a bonus of 10% hit points, attack, accuracy, and resistance for my Bannerlord Guardians. So let's see how that looks on one of my Bannerlords. Skip that. So we'll go in here. We'll sort by Bannerlord faction. And we'll just take a look at that. Let's see. We'll take a look at Septimus. And we'll go to his total stats. So right now, he's got affinity bonuses. He's got classic arena bonuses. He's got mastery bonuses. But because I don't have duplicate legendaries, he doesn't get any faction guardian bonuses. But he does have blessings for being awakened. He's a 5-star awakened. That's another story. That's another video for another time. But all of these champions can be awakened, and they get some special advantages once they're awakened. So let's go in here and we'll go to the High Elves, because they're my next kind of tier. And let's take a look at one of my rare High Elves, because I've got that Faction Guardian level completely tripped out. Now I don't have any gear on him whatsoever, but we're gonna look at his total stats. Now this is Apothecary, probably one of the most useful rare champions in the game. You want to get him early. You want to get him level to 6-star as soon as possible, and then you want to ascend him as soon as possible. But for his affinity bonuses, as you can see, he gets quite a bit. That's through the Great Hall. He gets some classic arena bonuses. And here's his Faction Guardian bonuses. 7 to resistance, 3 to speed, 100 to defense, 88 to attack, and over 1,700 to hit points. Now, it's not a ton, but it does make a difference. It really does. Because that 3 speed, when you kit him out with artifacts, that's going to make a big difference. Same with the crit damage bonus from his blessing. That's going to make a huge difference, because he's going to get all kinds of extra damage. So that's kind of how the Faction Guardians work. Now, I didn't start actually using the Faction Guardians until later in the game. I just didn't take it seriously, but I am taking it seriously now. And I'm slowly rounding out my Faction Guardians here. Let's take a look at my orcs. So I have, just 2 rares right here. I don't think I have any extras. No, I don't. But I do have 2 epics. So if you look at the bonuses that I get from my epic orc champions, 10% hit points and 10% attack. That's nothing to sneeze at. That really isn't. And then down here, when I get another pair of duplicate champs, I'll get 15%. I'll get a 15 accuracy and a 15 resistance bump. Every little bit counts. And as you work your way up the chain, putting in legendaries, it's going to help. I should point out, though, you're only going to get the faction bonuses for the tier of champion that they are. So rare champions will only get the bonuses from rare Faction Guardians. Epic will only get epic Faction Guardian bonuses, as will Legos, legendaries. Now, I have 0 duplicate legendaries that I'm using. I preferred to empower my legendaries. That's another process that you can go into the Guardian Ring and you can empower your champions if you so choose. But now I'm to the point where I'm going to start using my duplicates for the Faction Guardians. And you say, well, John, if I'm hoarding all these Faction Guardians, what do I do with them? How do I keep making space for new champions as I earn them? Well, it's pretty simple. You go into the Champion tab. Down here on the lower right or lower left, there's Champion Vaults. You click on that, and you have the Master Vault where you can just kind of stage play champions, and then you have the Reserve Vault, and you can grow these, or you can add to these by once they get filled. You can click on this plus sign down here, and it'll tell you how much it costs to expand them by so many slots. 32 gems for 10 slots or 96,000 silver. Your call. It's probably not something you need to worry about right now in an early game account, but as you get into your end game accounts, you may want to keep that in mind. Now, lastly, I want to talk about the roles or the different types of champions there are. There's only 4 types of champion. There's attack, there's defense, there's hit points, and there's support. Those are the 4 main roles. Now, you can build your characters however you want. It's not unusual to have a hit point nuker or a defense nuker or an attack nuker. And then in some cases, for some people, they can even build a support nuker. But the point is you want to build those characters with that role in mind. For example, let's take a look at my Duchess Lilitu. She's a demon spawn legendary. She's I've been fortunate enough to get 3 of her, so I've empowered her. But let's take a look at how I've got her built. So her main skills, and she's fully booked, are Abyssal Invocation. She can attack an enemy twice, and then she places a shield buff equal to 10% of this champion's maximum hit points for 2 turns on this champion and the ally with the lowest hit points. That is awesome because shield nullifies or negates damage or reduces it to the amount that is equal to the Duchess's max hit points. Once that shield is gone, it's gone, but it's good to have. She also has block debuffs, increase attack, and Perfect Veil. Perfect Veil is awesome because it's kind of like invisibility for the teammates that she has, so that they only take a certain percentage of damage from area of effect attacks, and on top of that, they cannot be attacked by single target attacks. She's also got a full team revive with 70% hit points. And then once they're revived, they get a veil buff on them and a 15% continuous heal buff for 2 turns. And then lastly, her passive decreases the damage taken by all allies from AoE attacks by 25%. 15% from bosses, but still 25% is massive. Her aura is ally speed in all battles by 19%. She's got a nice speed mechanic. But let's take a look at the artifacts I have her kitted out with. I have her built with decent hit points. I wouldn't say over the top, personally. Her attack value is not real high, but her defense value is pretty good because all of her attacks scale on defense. You got to keep that in mind when you're building her. Attack does not always mean attack. Sometimes it scales on defense. So her defense, if we look at it right now in her total stats, is just a shade over 5,000. Her attack is a shade over 2,000. Why? Because attack just isn't important to this champion. I wish her speed was a little bit higher. I'm working on that. But right now I'm dealing with the artifacts that I have available to me. She's not a high-end damage-dealing character, so I don't have a lot of time or effort spent on critical hit. Instead, I've spent that time on her hit points and her defense because her skills do matter when it, those two statistics kind of matter to the bonuses and the defenses that she passes off on her allies. So what does it mean when you build a nuker? Well, there's a couple different ways to build a nuker. We're not going to get into the inner workings of how to build the perfect nuker, but a nuker does just that. It gets in, takes an attack, and there's 2 types. There's single target nukers, and then there's area of effect nukers, and I've built both. We'll take a look at a couple of them. Because this is an end game account, I have quite a few legendaries. We're not going to waste time on those. We're going to focus on what kind of nukers you can get early game. So right out of the gates, one of the better ones is Kale. My Kale is fully booked. It was an investment that I made early on once I earned him. Why? Because he has the poison. He also can attack all enemies and has a 15% inflicting a critical hit. And all of his attacks are based on his attack ability. So let's build him. Why not? I don't have a lot of extra gear for him, but we'll see what we can put together here. I have no accessories, so we'll move right into artifacts. Let's get rid of some of the garbage because I've got a lot of garbage here. Actually, we're just going to get rid of all of the common and uncommon gear. It's worthless. I'm also going to do this, highlight all of these, and we're going to get rid of anything that isn't 4-star and above. And that narrows it down quite a bit. So what kind of build can I put together for Kale? Well, we want him to be fast. So let's take a look at what is available for speed. Do I have any crit rate? No, I don't. So we'll put in this chest plate, resistance of 12, crit damage of 4%, crit rate of 5. And let's see what his speed, if I've got any speed boots here. I do. So that's the first two. That gives us a bonus to speed of 12%. Now let's take a look at what we can do for his crit rate. His base crit rate is 20% right now. So let's see if we can crank that up. We're going to go in here. We're going to filter this. We're going to go to this, equipped. And we are going to go down here to primary stats, crit rate. What kind of gloves do I have available? Well, I've got this set right here for Urticata. That's not too bad. And I don't really use her that much, so I think we'll grab those. And then we're going to go back up here, clear the filter, and we're going to see what we have for weapons. Now, the speed set is a 2-piece set, so you want to build it in pairs. This is just my philosophy. There's a bunch of other philosophies. I know that there's going to be people out there that say, oh, you're wrong, you got to do it this way. This is the way I do it. This is the way I like to do it. Feel free to experiment and do it your way. So what do we got here? We've got, we'll do this one because that gives us more speed. Speed is the winner. Speed is the most important stat in this game above all else. If you can't go first, you most likely will not win. So then that leaves us with a helmet and a shield. So let's see what we can find here. I feel pretty good about the crit rate that I'm going to get. We're not going to do any more crit rate pieces. We're going to focus on crit damage. So let's see what I've got available to me. All right, we're going to go with this one because it does give us a little bit of defense as well. I wish that I had some accessories because the amulet would be great to add additional crit damage, but I just don't have the accessories available right. Well, actually, let's see what we've got. Let's see what we've got here. We are going to go to accessories, filter, and let's see what we've got equipped. Maybe we've got something that he can steal from somebody else. Amulet, no. We'll leave that with him. I don't have a lot of amulets, unfortunately. Most of them are used by characters that I use regularly. So I don't really have anything that I can cannibalize from other characters. So what we're going to do is we're going to level these up and just see how close we can get to having a decent build. I'm only going to go to level 8 because that's what I can afford. Silver is a problem on this account. And I made a catastrophic error with this account a while back. I ended up selling most of my artifacts, even my good ones, because I was like, oh, I'm going to clear out all of the chaff and keep only the premier parts. But I hit the wrong button at the wrong time, and lo and behold, I really messed up my account. So I'm still recovering from that a little bit. Okay, so let's take a look at the crit rate. All right, his crit rate's over 100%. Let's see what his total stats are. He is an attack-based champion. We really want to push that attack because that's where he's going to get a lot of his damage. That's what his attacks scale off of. His crit rate is 101%. We're not going to worry too much about pushing that any higher because 100% is as high as you're going to get. Anything above and beyond that is just wasted percentage. Better to try and cram it into crit damage or speed or resistance or, in his case, accuracy. But for right now, it's good enough. His total power is 33,000. I'd like it to be a little bit higher, and this affects that. I'm also using 5-star gear instead of 6-star gear, and none of this is ascended. So I'm not going to get any bonuses there as well. But that's basically the principle that you want for building a nuker. Is you want speed, you want crit rate, and you want whatever their skill scales on, be it attack, be it hit points, be it defense. You want that to be as high as possible. So in Kale's state, we want his attack to be his highest stat, followed by probably his speed. The rest will kind of fall in line as we level up this gear. Now, he is max level, so he's not going to level up anymore, so I just have to keep my eyes open for better gear. So that's how you do an attack champion. Now let's do a hit point champion. Let's just take a look at one that I really enjoy running, who's probably one of my favorite HP nukers. She's a free champion. You get her after, I think, 365 days. And that is Eric's. So she is a hit point champion. All of her skills scale off of hit points, so you want her hit points to be as high as humanly possible. Now, for my build, it's even a little bit low for me. But if you look, her hit points are still way up there. Her crit rate is 105%. Let's just take a look at her total stats. So her hit points are 85,000. Her attack is 3,200. Her defense is 3,100. I like having a little bit of defense there because that provides some survivability. Her critical rate is 105. Her critical damage is 230. Her resistance is 103. I wish that was a little bit higher. We'll work on that. And then her accuracy is 130. I have no ignore defense. That is a fatal flaw with this build. And then I have her masteries here. Those actually help a lot when you're trying to build a nuker. This is basically the nuker pattern. I will deal with masteries at a different time in a different video. She is fully booked. So, you know, she's getting quite a bit of damage from these skills. So when she hits, she really smacks. But she is kind of a go second champion, so you want to have some survivability in there. I currently have her equipped with bolster armor. Why is bolster so useful? Because bolster, if you have 4 sets equipped, you get 30% hit point shield for her and all of her allies. That lasts for 3 turns. And then she also heals by 10% of her hit points every turn. So it's kind of like she has some healing in addition to some survivability. It's huge. I also have Slayer gear to really kind of bump that crit rate over. Slayer gear is, in my opinion, one of the best sets in the game. I get that extra 5% right there from that. I also have her in 2-piece resilience. What is resilience? Resilience is important because that gives you 10% to your hit points and 10% to your defense skill. And that's kind of how I've built this hit point nuker. Now we're going to take a look at another one of my favorite characters. This one is going to be a defense nuker. And for me, the best bang for my buck right now is Freya. She is probably one of my best builds as far as characters go, and I don't even have an amulet. So she's missing out on quite a bit of crit damage there, but she still can really hit hard. So let's take a look at her skills. She is fully booked. It scales off of defense. This is important. So you want her defense to be the highest skill. She gets a provoke on her A1. What provoke is important about is, like, once a creature is provoked, they can only use basic attacks, their A1s, against her. They can't attack anybody else. The best way to counter a provoke, for those of you that are interested, is to have a character like Eric's who has all of her attacks based off of multiple enemy attacks. So they're all AoE attacks. But we'll get into that a little bit later. But provoke is awesome because they can't use any of their other abilities against you. Only their A1s. She has increased defense and shield that she puts on her allies. She removes all debuffs from allies and places a block debuff. And then her passive is she gets to add 5% to her defense each time an ally inflicts a critical hit, up to 50%. So pair her with a nuker of some sort, and you are all set. She prevents the death of an ally with the highest crit damage, except for that champion herself, and keeps them alive with 1 hit point when hit with a fatal hit. If there are multiple champions on the team with this skill, her effect will only activate once. She then heals that ally by 20% of their max hit points and activates an instant turn effect on them, meaning they get to go immediately. Her aura is defense by 30% in all battles, so if maybe you're on a go second team, you want to have your nukers in Stone Skin and then have her in the lead position so that they get a bonus to their defensive rating. Blessings are another thing entirely, but I do have Brimstone, which to me is probably the most valuable blessing in the game. I don't have her masteries here yet. I'm working on that, but it's a work in progress. So that's kind of how a defensive character works, or a champion works. I wish I would stop closing that window. And then lastly, we're going to take a look at a support champion. I think we will go to someone who's maybe a little bit more accessible rather than the Kraken account characters that I have. Let's go all the way down. We're going to sort this by rarity. We'll scroll down to... We're going to take a look at a free champion, I think. Yeah, we'll go to Apothecary. So Apothecary is a good character as far as support. He's kind of a speed demon. So you'll want to take a look at his skills. They all scale on attack. He's fully booked. He does have a healing, which can be really valuable if one of your characters or one of your champions is low. And he also can buff your team with increased speed. His aura, he increases ally speed in dungeons by 21%, or defense by 21%. I have him blessed with a miracle heal. I may change that. But all of his skills that he uses scale on attack. So you're going to want to build his attack as high as possible. You're going to want to get his speed as high as possible because you're going to want him to go first. I have no high elf accessories, so let's take a look at what we've got available. He's not a huge damage dealer, so we're not going to worry about that. Attack at 25. Hit points, defense, hit points. Trying to find a good set of gear for him. And this is part of the problem with me nuking my account about 2 weeks ago. That really messed my account up. So we're going to see what this two-piece set does. You want to avoid straight stat artifacts. They just don't do well unless there's a double roll. Like if this had attack 25 and then like an attack percentage, I might consider it. But you generally are going to get rid of those because they're just not useful. What about these? What do I have here? Again, gauntlets. You really want those to be primary of critical rate. Okay, so I picked the wrong champion to try and build. All right, what do we got here? I think we'll go with this. And then we will add this. So that gets him a little bit of crit rate. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it though because he's not a heavy damage dealer. Helmet. That's not to say it isn't useful. It's just not super useful for him. So we're actually looking for stuff that gives him a good attack rate. We'll equip that for now. And again, because I'm using critical, it's a 2-piece set. We want to equip those in pairs if we can. And we want to focus on his attack. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of attacks, so we're going to pick something that we can try and benefit from. We're going to use this resist 12, so we're going to throw those on him. And then I have 2 slots left. Let's go down here. I need a helmet and a shield. Here's a helmet and a shield. We'll use those for now. Not the best build, but again, I'm not really using him very much anymore. But if I were to build him, I would want to build him in something similar to that so that his attack is... Let's take it as total stats right here. So his attack is around 1800. His defense is 1800. Speed 122. Crit rate 45. Damage 85. Resistance 83. Accuracy 47. Now, that's with artifacts that I haven't upgraded. Let's see what will happen if we upgrade a few of these. We're just going to go to level 8 just to kind of see what happens. So he gained some hit points, he gained some accuracy, and then his attack went up a bit. We'll do the same here. We're just going to go level 8 across the boards. And in early game, level 8 is more than adequate because you're going to be dealing with the lower level campaigns, the lower level dungeons. You don't need to have them fully upgraded. You can do that in stages. Okay, so we're going to back out here. We're going to take a look at his total stats now. So by upgrading those, I put his attack and his defense over 2,000 apiece. His crit rate's at 51%. Not anything to write home about. His speed is 122. Resistance 129. Accuracy 56. But, again, this is perfectly acceptable for, like, a beginning dungeon or a beginning campaign. This is my whale account, my Kraken account, whatever you want to call it. So I have a little bit more as far as resources champion-wise. Anything worth buying in the shop? Nope. And that is going to be the video, folks. We're going to take a little break, and I think next time when we come back, we're going to talk maybe about Arena. At least for beginning Arena, to kind of get your feet wet, learn how to build a team that's going to do well in the early stages of Arena. But until that time, thank you for tuning into the video. I appreciate it. Love you all. And remember, no matter who you are, no matter where you are, you do matter and you are loved.